Shalom. Havenu Shalom Alahim. Havenu Shalom Alahim. Assalamu alaikum. Havenu Shalom Alahim. See, I realized something. And this is tough because I am already, my instincts have already been turned on and kicked in that let me know this is happening. And what that is that a sort of line of defense that's been developed from a high-class citizen group made up of, well, anybody trying to keep me from accrediting myself with being who I am. And the thing is, there's a certain psychology standpoint, a psychological perspective, and a diagnosis and process that PhDs are aware of that they also, using these groups of people, and this is originally, this is what I developed, but not for this purpose. Like, this is the thing, right? This is like it's a divine process. It's a rabbinical process. It's a Kabbalistic process. It's very sacred and ancient and old. And the thing is that your modern day PhD, whether they're like, a psychiatrist or a behavioral specialist, if they're limited to a scientific perspective, right? And you're abiding by the science that's taught, that's limiting, right? Where, like, there's only 5 reasons for behavior and there's only 5 senses, because that's not correct. There's more than that, right? But if you're a PhD functioning in that scientific realm off of principles like that, right? And then you're aware of these processes, right? Where there's a certain psychological conditioning that can be applied to an individual. If it's done correctly, what happens is that individual is going to experience, it's like a stress-induced traumatic process, right? And the human body, because you're all, we talked about it in the last, in the read I did, right? You're all connected to me, right? And because I'm God and I have a certain experience and exposure and process and perspective on things, right? That is really the only thing that makes me an individual from everybody, by the way. And so back to that conditioned process, right, that certain individuals are put through. They can have an episode. There's one thing to call it. It could be an experience. It could be enlightenment. It could be something that, makes a person crazy. But essentially, you through that conditioning, through that process, through that stress-induced environment, and whatever mechanics are at play, right? You can condition an individual to have a holy experience, to touch into some of that sacred geometry that'll connect you like directly to me, right? And then your experience, you'll have this. It could be a godlike experience. It's gonna be a divine experience on a level that's elevated above normal everyday life. And, it's similar to like a near-death experience, right? But the issue is, right, it's important for medical practitioners to know about this, because they need to be able to accurately like diagnose people, right? And when anybody other than me claims to be me, right? Well, they could be telling a story, right? They could have had one of these experiences. They could think it's real, right? Now, here's the next part, is that I'm even in that same boat, right? Which is why part of the reason I have to do this. Because I haven't, see, in this 37 years, right? I haven't gone to university, medical school. I haven't been to synagogue enough to be taught these things, right? I haven't even been to church enough for anybody to teach me this. And I mean, it's like, feels like World War III will start if I step into a mosque, which is crazy, by the way. But my point is that despite all that stuff, right? I know this, right? I've seen it happen to people. And I had to be very careful with myself and, be very critical of myself and be like, am I having this experience, right? Am I being conditioned into thinking that I am something I'm not? Or am I really experiencing being me, right? And when I say me, I'm talking about God, right? And what does that mean, right? So, the reason I developed this is there's a healthy way and process of going about doing this, right? And there is, and it's real, and it works, because essentially, what? Humans can reach enlightenment, right? You can exist on a plane of consciousness while living on Earth, right? that is akin to me. And that's kind of like, from a conscious, thriving, living organism's perspective, that's like as good as it gets, because you have the ability to indulge in anything your heart desires that you wish and please, right? However, right, did anybody consider me, my perspective, and like what I just said about what makes me, the only real thing that makes me an individual from everybody, right? Is that I'm just the original source of everything. Now, this debate originally started and was a mess back in the fucking day. You know, you're talking about Shakti. And that's what everybody freaks out about, is the thing. But what came first? The carrot or the stick? It doesn't matter. What matters is what? Do you have a carrot or do you have a stick? Right? Yup. So, you know, you have a Shakti or a Shiv. You have a Shiv. And I'm the only one who knows all of her secrets. And so I'm going to leave that at that. Now, what do we have? We have, well, everything past that. That's why being Jewish to me is so important. And Krishna, we're not even going to start with that. Okay, bruh? I love you, dog, but yup. Anyways, I don't have a conditioned psychosis, right? That gives me a divine perspective that was doctored by unauthentic practitioners that weren't, you know, in a way that wasn't natural and ordained by nature, right? I think I set into play, and I even submit to it, which is the same reason why I'm doing this kind of thing. And the thing is, when I do this, it says what? It's like, well, yeah, I'm a real doctor, like I said. I have to be to know this, know what I'm talking about, and to know that it's like, if I would diagnose myself, not to mention like the ancestors I'm with, they would fucking diagnose me first if I didn't. They'd be like, this is what you have. But instead, when I'm communicating, you know, I'm like teaching them details about that condition and process, right? And the parameters of which an individual might experience it. And when you go through all the boxes, all the checks, right? That's not a condition. That's the authentic source of what it is. So that I've done that. I've repeated that process over and over again. That's why it's taken me this long to be ready to do, open up shop and do a spiritual healing clinic. But once again, not even getting into that, the point is I can't even get that far, right? Because I bring this up as a concern for myself and as a way of, should this next part that I talk about happen, right? I shot this video first, so there's no using false information against me, doctored incorrectly, right? And if you try to do that, I have evidence that, either any doctor who does that or tries to do that would not only be making a mistake, right? But they're guilty, potentially, of doing that on purpose, like knowing who I was, but choosing to try to use that scientific methodology regardless. It's an unethical choice, by the way. And that's where, not applying love to all this stuff, right? Because that's the point, is to grow into enlightenment. You have to use love, right? To reach that state, you have to use love. Even that condition of experiencing the divine, that holiness, the thing that happens to people that makes them think they're God. It all requires love, right? Whether you're consciously applying that, or whether it happens on accident, or by whatever circumstances that happens, it's a needed ingredient in that formula. So that love, right? That's my love. It's my healing, that's my forgiveness. That's something to help you. That's not something that ever can be used against me. So let's say I go and try to do a clinic, right? Or let's say somebody sees this video and they're like, Justin's schizophrenic, or he thinks he's God or whatever. And, a doctor comes and tries to diagnose me and put me in some sort of loony bin or something, right? Well, they won't be able to do that. Or if I see this, right? Because I'm willing to admit that that's like a conditioned thing that happens to people, and that I was even concerned that's what was going on with me. For a long time, I thought that's what my experience was, right? Just overcoming life challenges that were so overwhelming that I was accidentally conditioning this experience within myself, right? Until that ran its course and proved false, because when I didn't have the ability to push myself any farther and keep going, I was shown the whole truth. Because at that point, I doubted myself, right? Except for every little thing that kept happening to me showed me that I was wrong. And the only explanation, scientifically or otherwise, is that I am definitely God. It's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to process, right? And really, it's coming down to like something stupid like this book, right? And like, I say this because you know, conditioning yourself and bringing yourself to enlightenment is a healthy process of growth if you really are serious and committed towards it. But I've also seen individuals who have had family members or other members of the community doctor these psychological and behavioral conditions into other individuals around me, and then attempt to take control of those individuals because that's what's possible, right? To do to somebody who you condition that process into, right? And they're not consciously aware of as many aspects of it as you are, right? And so that's the whole thing too, is that doctors cover their ass, right? All this stuff, like, if you were a doctor and you were doing this to somebody, right, you would already have all this like I'm doing right now. So, you know, so you can tell your story and you have your proof and evidence of your methods and your proof and how it works and that you're performing your job ethically and above boards. And so that's part of this, right? Yeah, and you know, everything I have to do is already hard enough. I'm not like I don't like doing things this way, you know. Because this could be dangerous too, you know. I'm telling you that, you know, there's a psychological condition that makes you think that you're God. Like, and yes, that's been abused. But, you know, I mean, it's like, that's, the thing is, like, this has practically got to be common knowledge too. Like, I've never Googled this shit or anything, but it's a thing. I've seen it done to other individuals and seen what it can do to them. And that's why, like, they say things like, the truth will set you free, the love will set you free, right? I will set you free. That's why the ancestors, the spirits all come to me, and, you know, lost souls and individuals, and even the ones who you think are well off and have plenty, right? They'll come to me and you know, should whatever conditions permitted, I'll, you know, show you the truth. I'll show you the love. I'll set you free. But, you know, that's the thing. It's like, I couldn't get, like, my level of accreditations that suit me, right? In this reality, the truth and the love is that only I can really accredit me. So, you know, once again, when I talk about the only thing that makes me different than everybody, right, is that, like, I'm the source of everything. And so the only way for me to be an individual, right, which I'm allowed to be in this country, is that I have to do things differently, right? So if I'm a doctor, right, if I'm, like, born a PhD, right, I'm a doctor of divine timing, say, then I would only discredit myself, especially in regards to, like, what I just put forth, if I had gone to a university. But see, that's only applies for me, right? That's where this thing, it's like, look, there are boundaries and limits. So that's why I say things like, respect me, love me, and know that I'm God. And it's really that simple, because it's harder. It'd be so easy if I could just, like, if I could just be comfortable naturally assimilating and fitting in, you know. However, immediately what? I get a sense that it's very dangerous for me, because I'm a PhD, that, you know, I have to stop myself pretty quickly. So, because what happens? It's like, well, I'm going to lose my soul, my individuality, right? The whole purpose of my divine timing, the day I was born, gone. Unless, you know, I do something to keep that from happening. So that's what I do. But that's hard, right? So that's why it's like, I don't even talk about or care about, like, being a doctor unless I actually have a reason to practice in public or tell anybody, or something's going on, like, you know, this current situation, you know. And I mean, it's like, the only thing that's nuts is that I'm not nuts, you know? And it's like, my feelings are hurt, everybody. I think that's the part that I don't think everybody gets, is that a lot of time I feel embarrassed for existing because I know that a lot of people know who I am, but ignore it and pretend that I'm not, and, you know. Just because, you know, there's a lot of royal families, you know, that have built their empires, and not just off of making money off of the book, but like the source where it comes from, you know, all that stuff. And that's only traced to Muhammad, not to the author. And then it's like, yeah, at that point, because the way it's traced back to me from where I authored it in heaven is a process, right? A divine process that allows people, just like, you know, the same conditioning of the mental psychosis here on earth, right? To think, oh, we could just take that from the individual, separate them from it, and we're all good. Mm-hmm. And then how far does that go? Why do we even need that individual? Right? I mean, the thing is, I didn't even speak all the words, right? And he still wrote them all down. And that was part of the process and the proof. And you know it too, but once you had it all written down, you thought I was the weak link, and, well, yeah, you couldn't have been more wrong, huh? Now this is going on, and so the first immediate thing to do would be to try to, you know, get some medical professional to diagnose me with having some problem that's not real. But I love real divinity. Justice. See? I love myself. I'm not going to let myself fall for something. Some bullshit plan nonsense that stops me. And, you know, do you know what it's like to be a medical practitioner and have other individuals with that condition around you come up to you and tell you that they're God, when you know that you are, and you know that they're not, and you know that if they continue on that path, they have a problem that's snowballing at a rate that only they are aware of. Now imagine that individual then, right? Thinks that you know, they're your superior, right? Because they're God and you're just whatever the fuck. Right? But as being the individual who actually is God, right? Especially if you care about that person, you have an obligation to try to help them without hurting them and let them know about the love, right? And what is that love? Well, that love is hopefully what they already know when they said that, in that they are only a piece and can tap into that and know how to do it safely. And that them telling me that is their way of saying, thank you, I look up to you, instead of like I'm the boss and I'm in control, because that's not what's going on at all, right? Right now, I'm in fucking self-defense mode. This is happening because I have to defend myself from individuals. Like the individuals who conditioned the individual, the last one, who came up to me and told me they were God. Right? Because whoever, got that person thinking that is trying to gas them up. Because anybody who has enough information to know how to condition that psychosis and behavior into an individual, right? They also have the ability and enough access of information to figure out that I'm really God. So then it's a matter of them gambling on, whether I know it or not, which is dumb. I mean, you have to assume that I know who I am, regardless of what anybody else thinks or wants, right? So that's the thing. It's like, does everybody want me to prove who I am? Or does everybody want me to try and fail because they think that I'm wrong? Except for, if I was wrong, I would have already failed. Naturally. I like, half the time I go over my shit, I'm like, there's no denying it, and that's why this is happening. That's the only reason I can even explain what's going on. There's a force of nature that overtakes me that just, that's love. It's like the love, it's like nature's love, right? It's like the love of mom. There's nothing stronger than that. And so that's, that's what I'm saying, is that I'm not a victim of that condition. I'm not somebody who has doctored into myself, right? I've always known who I was and I am, right? And then that process, that conditioning, was implemented and put onto me when I was very young, right? So there I am, already knowing I'm God. Obviously not saying it when I'm a kid, because no purpose for that move. I just wanted to be a kid at that point. So I didn't say anything at all, right? But I was put into that conditioning process, right? Well, that's what they do. It's you know, it's the type of shit that a government agency handler does to a fucking operative, a spy, to keep them in control. But you have to understand, I designed the most elite spy force in the world that is highly, you know, this is the thing, is that the notoriety of things like the CIA, well, they're just a tier below. No offense or anything, it's just the truth. It's just the love, right? It's all secondhand moves. And like literally, that's like what I was. That's what I had to deal with, right? And that was my concern, because that was going on. So I know I'm God, and then immediately I'm conditioned to think that, right? Now, if they're really smart, they know who I am. They try to condition me to think that I am who I am, right? So that I rely on their process of conditioning. And then, when I'm convinced, they pull. Except for, I'm the candlestick maker. Huh. Yup. I mean, Langley's in Virginia. Virginia has a flag. The woman holding it has a wand. A wand that was first built by my family because of this man. So, you know, I've had to be concerned since I was a kid and still try to just act normal and be cool about everything. And I don't investigate shit. Right? I might assess or analyze this situation, right? But what I'm trying to tell you is that you gave me operative conditioning, right? But I'm the individual who designed and built the control room. So it was never going to work. It was just going to show me everyone's hand, right? So even though, right, I apply a scientific methodology and process to a lot of what I do, the thing is that it still requires me to be divine in who I am for it to work, right? Because the foundation was that I knew who I was and what was happening to me, right? So I played along. I was chill, because it's like you can't do anything about that. You just go along with it and do what you do. But it screws you it screws you to your peer group, unless you want to like lord over them because you're the special kid in control once you grow up. But that's not what I wanted, and that's why I'm like, you know, it wasn't even my parents' choice to try to give me an advantage either, is the thing, right? They were influenced into making that decision by their peer group, right? And they were influenced to do that by, different places where they got their money. And some of those individuals, a large group of them, from a social standpoint, directed towards the social parent and my family, all were closely tied and associated to different sectors of U.S. Olympic teams. Yeah. And not only that, if they weren't that, they were all, too smart, too safe, too friendly, too fun, too planted right in their face. But what? They were isolated too. They were in desperate need of companionship, so easy sell for everyone, but the one you can't fool. So yeah, I'm not some burnt spy. I never was an operative for anybody at all, other than an operative of myself, of God, of my own free will, right? So for someone like me, right, free will, everybody has freedom to make whatever choice and make whatever they want. And all I did was make some basic ass templates for everybody to get real creative so they could be original and everybody could have fun, right? But I should get a lot of credit for how good my templates are, first of all. Duh. And then you start to get into other things like what makes me an individual, right? And the perspective of that is that the only thing that makes me different from everyone is that I'm the source, right? I'm the original, the first one. And that gave way for everybody else to do that. And other people created, like the same things that I did. So I know who did what and did it when and did it first. And I have ways to prove it too. But that's the thing, right? I'm the only one who can do that for myself. The thing is, how someone like me, right? It's going to look like I plagiarized everybody's work, except for it's the closer thing to the truth, the reality, the love is that that's the opposite going on, right? And sometimes that means that people really can plagiarize my work or try, or I can let them, right? Free will. So my free will, what do I want with my free will? Well, I want to be myself, right? I want to be known as love, justice. That's the truth. That's the love. That's who I am, right? That's what you see. That's what you call God. Avi, Allah, Ahava. Elohim is plural because of love and justice, or this. That's a plural thing, right? So that's where even that comes from. Even if I'm one, I'm more than one. Right? Why do I have to do all this shit? Make it so complicated? Talk about all this stuff? It's like, well, like I said, the only thing that sets me apart from everyone is that I'm the original source. Right? And the only one who can't be diagnosed with that behavioral condition. Right? Now, I'm supposed to be responsible for others who have that condition too and help them, no. So if everybody's just playing sick and going in, acting God, acting like I can't help them or show them the truth, right? And they have every right to think that they're God, right? Because they just misinterpreted scripture, yada yada yada, went on with the conditioning on some level. They're just let to run around because no liability in that individual. An individual could, run amok. So then you have people using this as an excuse and then blaming it on me for not doing anything about it, but you can't do that anymore, huh? And now you can see how sick everybody is. And then it's like, yeah. So, Krish, this is the issue with your whole making of gods, too, by the way. You're just going to have a different problem, like in every world, or every part of time. But you need me to make it official. You need me to authorize who's actually divine when it comes to being of that next level, because you're talking about something beyond enlightened human, right? You're talking about evolved into a god and not just like a superhero or supervillain, right? You've now gone beyond that. So you've even skipped a step. And it's a step that you talked about. So don't even get me started, because you're cool, but because you're innocent, right? This was an accident for you, and only I can vouch for that, right? And only I can vouch for that because I did this video. So, and that's, but the issue is that you've got a lot of other people now in trouble. They're going to blame you, they're going to blame me, whatever. The thing is, they knew what they were, a good amount of them knew what they were doing, or had somebody who knew what they were doing. Somebody who was close to them, somebody who said they loved them probably, or somebody who was supposed to be their caretaker and taking an oath to do so doctorally. Now, the tricky part is what? What obligation does a doctor have to a patient to put forth towards him physical harm? The answer? That doctor is absolved from having to care for that individual should they choose. Period. That's it. That's all. And that doctor also gets to choose when they feel threatened, right? So part of why I'm saying this is what? Show you that my PhD is real. To show you how I could get it. To show you how I had to do it. And that It's like I'm doctor, right? Dr. God. It's not because I doctored God, you freaking idiots. It's because I'm a doctor who is also God. Now, the thing is, let's say, we're talking about a situation where I'm being approached by someone who's under that behavioral psychosis issue, and I'm still in the process of diagnosing it, because it takes time. You have to just watch them in their natural state and be normal, like hang out. You have to just, love them. And take the time and let time give you the answers of what's going on. So when I engaged in that process and did that with that individual, right? At one point, the individual did something very questionable. And it was directed specifically towards me. And their motive, their consciousness, their intent, irrelevant, doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what? How did that make me feel? And did I choose at that point to have to obligate myself, right, towards that individual? It's like, well, it made me feel like honestly, it made me feel like that person was really crying for my help, but they had to do it by doing the opposite, and for whatever reason, that was the only way they felt safe doing that. And essentially, that means that individual has lost control of themselves, despite making it trying to appear as the exact opposite of that going on, right? And it was aggressive and threatening, and so it's like, okay, everybody's gonna get what they want, right? But at that point, I absolved myself from it being necessary that I was successful in dealing with that individual, right? Because at that point, it's like, I'm still going to do my job. I'm still going to do my best. But I can't be held accountable for what happens to them, because at that point, I need more time and space between us, because they proved that the opposite endangered myself, right? And is already a tricky situation. And so I've experienced that a lot too. So stuff like that, it's different with everyone. Everybody's an individual. So the thing is, you can't blame me, right? For all the bad shit, all the stuff that's gone wrong. Unless you accredit me for all the good stuff and everything going right as well. And that's how that works. So, like, when I went originally to Las Vegas and began performing a nationwide exercise that was desperately needed, because the exploitation and unethical, medical practices kept happening while charging individuals who are closer akin to spiritual healers as, the criminals, because they were doctored in taking the fall for a larger group of people trained at a university before engaging in criminal activity, preordained, right? Their future had a history that was doctored by someone with a degree. See, if I had a degree, I couldn't even do this ethically. And the thing that's crazy is that that's not crazy. And so, what you have me in Las Vegas, just, working at charity. A charity based out of a town called Holy Faith, by the way. Charity that I created and made. And charity for me, by me, that just so happens to also help and heal everybody. Give them what they need. And so I'm in Las Vegas, beginning this exercise, to safely de-escalate a situation, damage control, medically speaking, and cauterize the wound to stop the bleed. So I'm doing my thing, go on a spirit quest, and by the time I find my way back to my vehicle, 9/11 is written all around the whole thing. Like, I'm responsible for 9/11? Okay, fine, I'm God. 9/11 is my fault. No matter what happened, right? In all those buildings. But then if you're going to do that, then you also have to accredit me, right? With everything. So that was like a scare tactic. That was everybody's trying to scare me, right? And instead, what did they do? Two things. They proved that Santeria and voodoo is real, right? And that I'm in charge of that practicing naturally. Because that's a natural practice that only happens naturally. And so scientifically you can't track it, right? So it has no liability chain, which is why it's used publicly and taught so loosely in university, I'm guessing, or kids are just sharing it because that's what I see. That's what it looks like. Everybody thinks this is funny. Thinks it can scare me, but what happened? You charged me on 9/11 using Santeria. I took the charge and was like, okay, guilty. Because that's fine if you want to do that, but I did that because what? You want to do that shit? You accredit me. Because you can only charge the only individual you could charge with that would be God. Which means you also have to accredit me. It's a two-way street. So that only happens to God, Jesus Christ, Allah. And that means I am Selassie I Jah, Moshe, because Santeria comes from the island thing, right? But because what? It's all Shivism. It's older than all of those things. I remember everything, you know. And so that's what I'm saying is that you try to remove the liability from yourselves, right? Instead, you directly placed it on your heads while giving me the key to being in charge of that, being able to track it, right? And I'm allowed to look at people and be like, you're guilty because of my scientific process. Look how I had to accredit me. It's not playing judge, jury, and executioner. It's reading a sentence that came from a judge who practiced ethically, medically, spiritually, and combined all the things to make sure they weren't doing anything to take their individualism away, their job away, right? The nature of, I don't know, like the soundness in everything. The sound of everything, the balance. See, and so this is all very difficult for me. And it's not like, you know, how do you think I felt when I got back to my car and it's like, you guys know I'm God and you're trying to set me up to take responsibility for 9/11 amongst whatever else you know, crimes you want to stack up, you know, type of shit, please. It's like, fine. But that means that everything I said is real. I'm in charge, right? And that example in and of itself means that I am not The one on it's like, how do you think I knew about Donald Trump so quickly? It's because they tried to do it to me and it didn't work. It put me in charge, right? It literally, that was like, that's the moment right there where it's like, oh shit, I'm now in charge of Voodoo and Santeria, everybody. What were you thinking? Like, you were trying to scare me from doing what I'm doing, and instead you made me God, like, by way of nature. Like, you were trying to doctor nature, and you doctored it incorrectly and got exactly what you didn't want. And that's how I know, by the way. It's like, so I'm not like bragging about this, but it's like, look, it continues, it moves forward, it has steps. You know? I see that stuff happening here in DC, in public, while individuals are engaging with it. Like, it's all fucking fun and a joke, and it's not. It's real shit. And now there's no more not being liable, right? I'm liable for all of it. But I'm also, what? Allowing you to have free will. And I know my own testimony. So think about that. Right? And think about this. Like, I had no motive to do that for myself. And it made me in charge of it and be able to do this, right? And I'm telling you, my testimony is that I had nothing to do with that. I got back to my car, and that's what they were doing to me. And I don't even know who that was. But it was obviously a group of individuals, right? And I'm not just targeted by one crazy person following me around, no. It was coordinated. That's how it happened in such a small window of time to my exact vehicle location when I randomly chose where I parked. You know, is the thing. And then, you know, so I'm telling you I'm in charge, right? I didn't do that. I have proof and evidence of it. It happened naturally, that's how. And it's not like you all have done this work so hard to make it so I can't, you know, network anything. I don't have any friends, I don't have any family. I've never gone to school, I don't know anybody. All these kinds of things. So what happened to Donald Trump is the same thing as what happened in Vegas, see? People doing this themselves, doesn't matter if it's a stunt, if it's real. Just like 9/11, by the way, right? Doesn't matter if those terrorists, if it was Osama bin Laden that flew those planes in there that really dropped those buildings, or if there were bombs in there planted by the CIA, or the fact that, you know, prior to all that, they spent time training people, specifically Osama and other people like him, right? In certain ways, right? I'm talking about things being doctored. It's the same thing. All to blame me, so sure. But as I started this whole thing, that's not why I did this. It's not why it's used, right? It's all for love. Because just like what? Just like the devil, it's an illusion and a literary tool unless you're me. Right? And so I am the key, right, to getting those literary tools to come to real life digitally. Technology. Or getting them to freeze. And I give everybody free will, right? And boundaries. So it's safely exercised, done, practiced, and put into play, because, you know, everybody's going to grow up eventually, right? Naturally, I superintend that process. I don't even mean to do it. It's just what happens, right? Because I'm the prime source of everything. So, I mean, scientifically speaking, that's what that suggests, why that's happening. There's more, you know, I've got divine answers and secrets that prove it, but, or, you know, I could go more deep, but, I mean, that's simple. And that's also the true reality. So, you know, I couldn't have done that to Donald. I couldn't have coordinated any of that to Donald Trump. That, all that happening to him is him doing it to himself. Especially, you can tell stuff like that happens because, like, when you don't take responsibility for citing an insurrection, right? Or, you know, don't take the death of girls like Heather Heyer more seriously. When you're associating yourself with white supremacy, but then you're willing to throw little white girls under the vehicle while you escape. See, I'm not ethically responsible to anything that happens to Donald Trump, right? But I have to put my hat in the ring, because it's what I have to offer is a much better, safer solution for everybody. But riling up the public, whether it's a campaign stunt or a real thing, right? I mean, you didn't even bring up, I didn't hear anything about the families or the individuals. Like, that bullet actually hit somebody behind him and they got killed. He didn't say anything about that, by the way. And so, all of it doesn't matter, though. The point is, he created that whole thing, right? And based off of his ethical choices, behavior, level of control, especially having military force and being able to implement that over individuals like me, right? As just a citizen. Well, I'm going above and beyond my duty in offering this, but the thing is, right? Nature, right, allowed you to do this to yourself and absolved me of being responsible, even though I'm in charge of this practice, right? Because I let you have free will. You know that practicing this shit isn't safe, right? All the evil stuff, the demonology, whatever fucking little political stunts that get people like Donald Trump, right, to become head of state. Because an individual like that is obviously not qualified, right, to be in charge of a military as sophisticated as the United States. This is military. Period. And what he just did, right? It's like, you know, you can tell people to not hurt themselves, right? To not do the wrong thing. Like, you have to let them make that choice for themselves. You can show them the difference between right and wrong, right? You can show them what's not funny. You can show them what's, I mean, that's the thing. Didn't take me seriously, thought it was a joke, thought it was a game, thought it was fun, thought you could play. Thought, anybody who's anybody is just in charge. It's just nature. We're just folly-daddy-la-li-la. Nope. No, voodoo and Santeria, right? Those are, like, by way of nature, right? It's like, it's a divine thing. It falls subject and submits itself to the laws of nature. That's how it works. See? Which means that anybody practicing it has to subject themselves to the same thing in order for it to work properly. Right? And what I'm showing you is what? I'm showing you self-defense non-violently. So, like, you can't blame God, me, right, for having a natural self-defense mechanism built into me, right, that is accompanied and powered through nature, right? It just works for me whether I like it or not. And if I'm consciously not doing anything, right, and then I have somebody who's obviously trying to end my life and stop me or whatever, blame me, make me the scapegoat of their problems, their issues, like hell-bent, doubling down, going against God, whatever they think, right? Well, if I just sit down, right, and then a force of nature, like, stops them in a way that says, I did that to protect this person and to screw that person and this person. There's no possible way they could have influenced. I'm nature. I naturally did it for them to teach everybody a lesson. Well, then, hopefully at that point you see, right? Because that's what's happening. And I'm still willing, to exercise as an individual because that's a safer thing. It teaches the kids correctly. It's like, it's like the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, look, one nation under God. It's a real thing that works. Indeed. It's the only thing taught right in public school, right? It's the only reason that the other information that's correct in there can be used and extrapolated, because that's what I had to do. But it'd be better if the kids knew, right? Like, I'm in charge of 8th grade girl shit because that's what I fucking love. That's my real divinity, fool. Like, are you kidding me? There's no reason to treat me like a special ed student. I'm the specialist. I'm the most special of them all. I don't have any learning disabilities, right? I'm not a disabled individual. I'm got super abilities. That's all I know ADHD and autism to be, people. And that's outside the realm of me being God, too. That's something I share, right? The only thing is what makes me an individual? I am the source. I am the creator of what? The creator of taking a negative perspective and spinning it into a positive one? Yup. Nobody taught me I had a super ability. Nobody taught me being special was good. It was always used against me. A crutch for me to lean on. An excuse if I fucked up. But it came with a price, right? And it comes with a price for everyone. And that's that it's the voodoo thing, it's the Santeria thing. If you say you're disabled, that's the story you tell. Eventually that story comes true. So I created something that was designed to make me broken, and instead used it to make me well, right? I'm not a disabled individual. I don't have a disability. I have a super ability. And I taught that to the autistic kids I tutored and helped. What makes me an individual? Not being a superhero with all of them, no. They're just as good, if not better. I was born in the G code embedded in my blood. But I'm the one who created that process. Taking your weakness and turning it into strength. Here's a question for you. Which word of hate came first? Kike or nigger? Well, that's not like the chicken or the egg or the carrot or the stick. That one's real easy to trace, everybody. I mean, that's the point of remembering the Holocaust was real, by the way. Because when you go in, right, to create an Aryan race, right? That means you're obviously getting rid of all the black people. When you target Jewish people first, that means what? And you've done all the history. That's the root. That's the source. So the Nazis were, That's why they targeted the Jews first. Yeah, I'm that dude. But what? Took a word that was used against me like kike and was like, yeah, what up, my kike? Grr, brr. I am Jah Rastafari. Yup. That was a long time ago, too. Do you know how much that one still hurts when you hear it? Because, at least with the other word, right? What's the simple difference in knowing, like, it being used as a term of empowerment? A lot of times it's just a hard R or a soft ah. It literally traces back to me and my name, by the way, but that's because I didn't want what? Well, and probably, that's my grace, that's my mercy, that's my love. I mean, and that's a sign that Germanic languages, right, come from Hebrew, right? Is that when you get to them and when you get to people who have black skin, right? And that word, right? You get that option. But when it comes to Jewish people, and they're called kike, right? And then they have to flip the script and be like me and get all hip hop and be like, yeah, what up, my kike? Because, they're a half-blood, or because they're Hebrew but put some ink on their body, because their spirit, maybe they saw their face in a dream, and that's what they saw. It doesn't matter, I say that, I empower myself with it because what? It's been used against me by people that I love. So, it strikes a nerve. It gets you to think. Hear stuff like that as a kid on top of everything. I had to go to school in Los Alamos public school system too, by the way. I'm not even going to start with what I had to face in that environment. Just racially. And look at me. Look how freaking white and blue-eyed I am. With this, my hair, I mean, I love the way that I look. I wouldn't change a thing. My feelings, though, right, still get hurt by anybody who hates me or presents hate to me or associates hate towards a group. That if they want, if they please, if they need, when it suits them, when it's convenient, they can throw me in for the negative shit, but not, empower me with anything positive culturally. I mean, and that's what was taught to me, and despite that being taught to me, I'm still overcoming these challenges. have anybody to help me with these difficult things. You know? Sure, I had some good inspirational music and, you know, places to look. My father was the greatest thing, but at the same time, socially, you know, genetically, right? It's a degree of separation. It was made into a big thing. It really wasn't anything other than something that, as you can see, can never be used against me. But I mean, you know, how does this end? When does this end? You know, what's going to happen? Talking about this process, right? How can I be sure that talking about it won't get people to try to condition that experience themselves? Well, we can see, you know, your best case scenario, right? Trying to be me is that you end up like Donald Trump, and that's the best case scenario, right? But here's the fucking fucked up thing. He led you on a straight path to not ever existing. He led you on a path straight to a place where there is no sound thinking, which means there is no sound speaking, which means there is no sound seeing, which means there is no sound anything, which means there is nothing at all. There isn't light, there isn't darkness. So we're not even like fire, right? Because the fire is what comes first, right? That's the example. So that's, you know, hell is living in the war zone, right? And feeling like it's war. I've been in a war zone my whole life with the war directed directly at me, right? And that's what I call home. I mean, I don't live in the fire, right? If my house is on fire, I can't see the fire at all. I don't feel it. And it doesn't affect me. Apparently when it gets worse, right, my life gets easier. And I'm the only one that works for. So, that doesn't mean that, like, I'm the devil that lives in hell, you guys. Think about it. That means that you tried to put God in hell. And I don't give a fuck because, what? I can't even perceive hell as real, right? But you can. But you will if you end up there, right? And that's the thing. Donald Trump will say anything he wants to right now, but what? From now until the rest of his life, until he dies or gets an exorcism from me, right? That's his mental framework. That's what he literally built for himself. He's going to pass it along to his family members, those closest to him, his cabinet members, his campaign team. Should he become president, the American people who listen to him and anybody who listens to him along the trail. I could listen to anything he fucking says. It's not going to affect. I'm the only one, right? It's not going to matter to you at all. And then even if you reject him, right, but don't accept my my way to fix it, then what? You're scared to death. You're scared to look. You shook. There ain't no such things as halfway crooks. You're all stripped of your innocence, weakened because you're guilty as fuck. It'll break you down. Psychologically speaking, physically, mentally, emotionally. Your soul will dip the fuck out. Because your soul, right? Your soul can be repurposed. Your soul can be used for good when you're stripped of it because your soul left you, right? Somebody tried to make it look like my soul left me. Jeez. How stupid would they be if they used that as a artist alias as well, huh? That'd be a quick way to strip yourself of your soul. Set an example for everybody of what exactly not to do unless you meant to do it respectfully. But I have no reason to believe that individual did that or had that intention because they half-heartedly faked every attempt to prove that that's what they were doing and didn't even know the simplest shit like 9mm is a BDP song, and that's what 50 Cent is listening to when he looks in the mirror and Get Rich or Die Trying, and he does that face like you, Larry, because he looks up to you and he looks just like you for a split second when he does it, and it's like one of the dopest fucking things I've ever seen. What? Even Jay Souls, ice smoking fucking street demon that he attracted noticed who was who when I said that, and he was like, oh, shit, that means you're the real one. He's a fake motherfucker. And he's like, You should fucking kill that fool. And I was like, bro, that is way too harsh for him not knowing that. But I understand where you're coming from. It's like, that's a fucking joke. It's a respecting for other individuals because that individual didn't have respect for him and spent time, a lot of time, what seems to be trying to exploit them as well. What pull, what say do I have, huh? I don't know how you missed that for yourselves. But, who gives a fuck? I saw good in him too. That's another reason, There's potential in everyone. But that potential will be what you want, right? Think about this. What's the only potential I have? Either to be God, right? The only thing that makes me an individual is that I'm the source. Or to not be an individual, right? And follow somebody else. But even if I followed the most intelligent people I know, right? Like you, Krish, or like my dad. Going their way, going your way, going anyone's other way besides my way, would have lost me, my soul, right? And even still this, I'm still risking everything, right? I mean, technically what I just said are classified government secrets. However, if I was never shared those secrets, right, I just know them because, I'm good at math. It's one way for someone like me in my position to have figured a lot of stuff out, right? What does that mean? I'm allowed to, because they're not secrets, are they? Nobody told me. I was never given any clearance, right? I'm just a citizen who was able to figure them out. So, and even if I'm born a doctor, it's like, I still have to save my own life. What is a life, right? A mind, a body, and soul, right? The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, right? So you can share those things, right? Your mind, body, and soul being viewed as the characters of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Whether you're male or female, you can apply that to yourself, right? And it works. What makes me and you do it just like me, right? I do it the same way. But what makes me an individual, right? I invented that process. I developed that process. I am the first, right? I'm the source. Even if it looks like I'm second, because well, linearly speaking, right? That's how you can identify language, right? because it crosses barriers of people, right? It has to be passed along. It has to develop. And so seeing how it changes, right, gives you a trail, a linear trail that you can use, right? And you can apply it to things, not to measure, right? But so that you can know what's important, right? So that's why I like those words, right? Linearly speaking, they reveal the truth. That's simple. But when it comes to like what came first, the chicken or the egg, the carrot or the stick, right? This divine being or that one? Well, or was it a girl? It doesn't matter at a certain point, right? I'm the source, I have the proof, and I've done the work. So it's there. Other people have done that kind of thing as well, but let's say that, here's a good example, right? Let's say that after Muhammad died, he went to heaven, right? And then we've got Muhammad and Allah in heaven, right? And they want to come back to Earth, right? And they want to come back to Earth as what they have become, right? The prophet who followed the straight path to Allah, right? Who was elevated to the level of God. And then Lord of Mercy, God, right? And they want to come back to Earth as like the prophet, basically one step below God, and then God wants to come back as God as well. Which one would come first, and why? Well, if I wasn't, if I didn't know the answer, I would naturally hypothesize, knowing based off of how my brain processes information, what would be the safest, most effective way to get that done, right? I think baseball, right? The first guy you have up, right? He's not your best power hitter or best hitter necessarily, right? He's your best guy to get on base. Same with the second one, right? So essentially, your first and second hitters, right, are the same, kind of fall into the same sort of parameters, right? Where they're good at getting on base without getting out, right? Could be any number of things. They're just divine like that. Let's see. 1 and 2 is the same, even, type of thing. And then you got 3 and 4. That's when you bring the power out, right? Same kind of thing. So, you know, that is science, by the way. So, you know, Muhammad would come down first. And then God would be in the same lifetime after him. That's what I would hypothesize based off of baseball. Easy. Right? There's no arguing with that. You have to call the fourth hitter in baseball the cleanup hitter, by the way. Right? So, because, and that, you know, it's what's safe, right? It's like, well, if Muhammad goes down, right, and he can survive as like Muhammad or whatever name, you know, whatever station he's elevated to himself in heaven, that he's comfortable with identifying himself as and sharing publicly, right? Then if God comes down afterwards, all God has to do is prove he's God, and then he can just back up Muhammad and bang bang. I shouldn't have had this difficult of a time with this proof. I shouldn't have to prove that I'm a doctor doing this kind of thing, right? This isn't fucking medical school. This is, you know, self-defense martial arts that I developed, known as Shredikit, consisting of 4 disciplines, but it's turning more into a, you know, a fuck you, pay me kind of thing, which is just following the principles of the nonviolent martial arts I developed because they work flawlessly. But that's crazy to me, you know? Because think about it. I could work. I can actually practice medicine better than anybody. I'm the best doctor in the universe, everybody. And I'm the only one who should ever be given a doctoral degree without going to school or medical school, by the way. That's the whole point of this, too, you know? It's like you don't get it. I'm the only one who is authorized to do this. I don't authorize anybody to try to be like me, right? That wouldn't be safe for anybody. Look, right? That's the whole point of the whole Donald Trump thing, too. It's like, you know? And so they try to spin it and be like, well, what about Muhammad? And it's like, first of all, we have a relationship that goes back farther. Secondly, you know, he still is not like me. He still never will be me. He still is not trying, right? He did his own thing. We're just very similar, right? Family. Right? But I'm the one who made up family. So it doesn't even matter, right? Who's older? Who is the thing? I mean, I know who is. But obviously, I could just keep going and going, talking and talking. That's the thing. It's like, look what happens, right? When you accredit the wrong... Like, there are people who are given college degrees that don't go to college, right? That aren't me. Now that's all stopping, right? Because I deserve one. That's stopping. Do you guys have any idea what you're doing? No. Because it's suicide. You're committing santeria on yourself. Dangerously. Right? And because you're trying to hurt me, take away my ability to provide for myself, create a family, survive, accredit myself with what I need, what I deserve, what rightfully belongs to me. Right? That's how the process comes full circle back onto yourself when you try to use it against me. Because if you're stripping me of all my options, so the only option left is to eliminate the source of the problem in the first place. And nature does all of that for me. Or just sit back and watch the fucking horror show in front of me and be like, yeah, well, we could have been cool about this. You know? People could have played with me. When everybody was already on drugs by the time they were fucking in 7th grade, you know? Spiritual fucking habitual fucking, you know, savants and you know, sommeliers and shit. Chamaliers. Yeah, you like that one. Then it's like, okay, so the only free space, right, is for me to get involved in trade, right? And as, you know, the greatest trader of all time, Superior, Muhammad Superior, that means I'm really good at trade and how to do it ethically. And by the way, I'm the only one who had a legal right to distribute spiritual habituals. By the way. So when everybody's doing it, everybody's got them, the whole thing. I mean, it's like, well, you're trying to make it look like I engage in criminal activity or unethical behavior and any number of other things, right? And unfortunately, part of the only way I could prove that I am who I am, you know, was not only to engage, but to safely get away, because I was innocent the whole time, obviously, and I knew that. I never did anything irresponsible or unethically. As a matter of fact, I'm the only lifeline, safety net for a good number of individuals who were marked for freaking early graves without me, quite frankly. Do you know what it's like going in a situation like that? Do you know what you do with individuals? You don't even start by trying to save them from their early grave. You start by providing them with the tools they need when they get to the other side. Because death at a young age is the most likely what's going to happen to them. And you have to do it confidently, and not being scared of them, their path, yourself, what's going on, the situation, amongst whatever other things are going on. See, it's a war, and it's a war all on me. But I love real divinity, right? Justice is the thing. How did I survive all that? Easy. I loved the real divine ability that I had to provide everything that I did for everyone and thrive. Well, I shouldn't have made it out alive, but did anyways. I got to help real people in need. I still do. I still am. And that's the thing. I'm now being withheld from the people who need me, the people who are hurting and starving and in desperate need of me the most. And what's keeping me from serving them, helping them, providing charity? Well, me having to take steps like this rather than being given the benefit of the doubt, being innocent until proven guilty. I have to cover my ass. And I shouldn't have to do this, right? Because I shouldn't have to be concerned with being sued for malpractice without a degree to practice. But it's like, seems like, that would be the next step for all those fucking assholes trying to come at me. So I prove all this. Then they're going to try to say I committed malpractice. But that'll only what? Identify you as being guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, obstruct justice, and effectively are an enemy of the United States. Because, look, I just hijacked the CIA. Took over the control room and made myself the only legal operative in effect. So, case closed. Investigating anything is what? Well, as a doctor, I'm going to diagnose it as unethical practice. So, Federal Bureau, we don't need you as well. The DEA, well, drugs should be legal, and then all that manpower can go towards what? Being focused on stopping violent criminals. I can regulate what? As the head of the CIA, and only legal operative, I can regulate the sales of spiritual habituals legally in this country. Geez, I could create, I don't know, the first ethical way of dispensing them and show you all how to do it. It worked with weed, the most complicated fucking one of them all. And everything that works from it came from me. Even the plant, everybody. So, see what I'm saying? Those three things are the problem. I got stopped. I can stop. I can change. I can fix. Redirect. Make it better. Keep everybody from shooting themselves in the fucking head. Or have fun playing fucking first-person shooter deathmatch. But know this. This isn't a video game. It's not a game at all. There is no respawning, right? And this time, if you don't, make it out alive, you might not ever exist again. Not even as an insect. That's nature should be showing and telling you that, like, nature's gonna follow my relationship agreement and get rid of the trash because I came up with a plan to balance homeostasis on the planet and manage 5 to 20 billion individual people's trash. And nobody has any idea how difficult it was to design all that, to come up with it, to check it, to go through the work. That's part of the reason why I have to live. It's like, yeah, I also really am in charge of waste management. Yeah, you people are ridiculous. Grow up. I love you. Do the right thing. Go stupid, but don't be stupid. Respect me, love me, know that I'm God. If you try to use anything against me, remember, I have a legal right to defend myself. Medically, legally, and nature has got my back and it's shit up and yup. So I would start by practicing, I don't know, being ethical and honest and consider this, play a game. Pretend that I am who I am, even if you don't believe I am God, right? Just pretend. Let me then play, right? Let me prove myself wrong, if I am. That would be the fastest way to get rid of me, if I was a fraud. And based on, how I operate, it'd also be the fastest way to prove that I'm the real thing. So, you get the truth, you get the love. But you only get that if you give me a chance, right? If you consider me innocent till I prove myself guilty. So, I guess the only thing that really makes me a doctor is that you guys will have to patiently wait for that part. Spoiler alert. It's never coming up. So, we can, stop the doctor-patient thing if you all can be more like me and accept me for who I am, God, as myself. See, I was even my own patient until I wasn't, because I accepted myself as my doctor, my healer, and then could actually assign and seek out a peer group and an actual, outside medical physician source to check and keep myself in check and heal, cuz what? The most ethical relationship is not your partners, but your peer group, because what? I have a patient who's a doctor, right? And that doctor is who I am the patient of. Heal. Could you imagine the work we get done? I can't even imagine it. I have a dream. And it will come to pass. There it is. There it was. There it will be. And I'm out, y'all. For now, I'm done. Peace. Walaikum assalam. Have a new shalom alahim. L'chaim, y'all. I'm Ari. Love. Achava.